Hello, here's an update on the Log4j version 2 vulnerability, also known as Log4 shell. This update is in continuation of previous videos where we explained the vulnerability and demonstrated how the Event Tracker Managed Threat Protection Service helps you to detect it. There's been some new developments, and that's what we'll cover in this update. So Log4j, of course, is the open source Java-based logging framework that has been found to be vulnerable. And of course, this is a very widely used library. And so we're seeing a lot of attacks across applications that incorporate it. So December 9th, of course, we had the original disclosure, which was fixed in version 2.15. Subsequently, a new vulnerability was discovered to the release 2.15, and this resulted in 2.16. This was scored at a 3.7, and it was noted at the time that there were some non-default configurations that were still vulnerable. But what's happened recently is that, or yesterday I should say, is that that vulnerability has been escalated from a score of 3.7 to a 9.0, which is really severe, and so you need to pay attention. What happened, by the way? The security experts that were testing this found additional exploits against the 2.15 that could lead to not just information leaks, but also remote and local code execution. And this is not something to be taken lightly. Originally, the CVE was thought to be around denial of service, but now this is really around remote code execution. This isn't a very common thing, and this can only occur if there are pattern layouts that have a context lookup. The example that's cited would be vulnerable to the fix that was provided in 2.15. Now, 2.15 made the best effort attempt to restrict the JNDI LDAP lookups to localhost by default. But it turns out that there are ways to bypass this. And so the previous guidance that said you could simply set that to true, no lookups to be true, and you'd be safe, turns out to be insufficient, and you shouldn't rely on this. And that's really the update. So what's the updated advice on mitigation? The previous advice, which was just simply set the Log4j format message no lookups to true if you were running a 2.10 or higher, that turns out to be insufficient. It only limits exposure in some cases, but there are still some attack vectors. So the reason for this is the threat context. There are still code paths in Log4j where the message lookups can occur. Now, this is all obscure, but it's very meaningful in the security world, and attackers will in fact leverage this in some fashion if you happen to have these sorts of configurations. So the best advice at the moment is to completely to remove the JNDI lookup class from the Log4j core Java archive or jar file. If you can't do this for some reason, then you could also think about upgrading Log4j or the application that includes Log4j such that you get a safe version, which is right now 2.16 if you're running JVM 8 or higher, or 2.12.0 if you're running JVM 7 for some reason. Please stay tuned as this evolves. This is, of course, a very serious vulnerability, and so we're paying lots of attention. I want to reiterate that this doesn't change anything for the NetSurian MTP products, this new guidance. As I mentioned before, the V9 core code does not use the Apache Log4j library, and there is no component of Event Tracker that's impacted by this vulnerability. Now, some of you have said, but wait a minute, Event Tracker incorporates Elasticsearch version 7.2.1. We scanned the installation and we found a vulnerable version of Log4j in there. 2.11.1 jar. Completely correct, you are right. But please note, this is not exploitable and it doesn't require you to do anything at all. No urgent remediation is necessary. This was confirmed by Elastic. You can look it up. Elasticsearch 6 and 7 are not susceptible to the remote code execution because they use the Java Security Manager. Also note that the implementation of Elasticsearch in NetSurian's Event Tracker is bound to the local host, which is 127.0.0.1 only. Therefore, it is not accessible from another machine, even inside your network, never mind the big I internet. Of course, we have tested all this and confirmed that these statements are in fact correct. So we're confident in telling you that NetSurian's MTP products are not at risk. Thanks for your attention. Hope you're having a good day.